The Nerdcast Empire is on the air. It is another episode of the Hard Rock Empire here on the Nerdcast Empire. I am Matt in the studio. Great to have you along with us. We are back with another week of podcasting excellence. We are back with the music of July the 18th tonight. And maybe, again, another week with not a ton of releases, but we did find some good stuff to share with you. We'll be doing that during the second portion of tonight's program. Of course, we'll have some news headlines to start off, and then we will go into the vault, talk about a couple of classic albums, then we'll wrap up with our question of the week in the Power Trio to bring the episode to a close. Joining me in studio, as always, is Mike. Mike, how's it going?
It's going. Pretty interesting week, music-wise. If you're a fan of Iced Earth, we had 2 albums out there that featured former vocalists from the band, Ashes of Aries and Captain Colnot. 4 albums from Rox Records, which I didn't realize was an indie label that specializes in like Christian rock and metal. But you got a re-release from a band, Arsenal, Armored Choir from 1990, Reign of Glory with Slingshot, Undoubting Thomas, In the Process of, and Weapons of God, Tribulation. Also worth noting, they're fairly local. They're from Middletown, Ohio, so that's kind of cool. You had major releases from Bush, Scars on Broadway, which is Darren Malakian's band from System of a Down, and Slaughter to Prevail, and best of releases from Five Finger Death Punch and a box set from Kicks. So, there's something out there for you, most likely.
Yeah, well, some different stuff. Again, not maybe a ton of releases this week, but some variety in the stuff that did come out. We'll talk more about that during the second portion of the program tonight. We'll start with a couple of news headlines to get things started. And, obviously a guy we talk about a lot on this podcast, Bruce Dickinson, in the news once again, and for good reason, which is always good to see, that he is getting ready, of course, to start a tour in this month, in fact, and he's announced that his next solo album will be recorded next year in 2026 and released in 2027. That, of course, was from Blabbermouth via a interview with Charlie Kendall of Charlie Kendall's Metal Shop. A lot of good information in there and some background, obviously, on Dickinson and his storied career that continues to be running strong. And it's one of those things that, every time we lose somebody in this industry, you just think there's still some of these guys out there that are not only continuing to do it, but continue to put out great music and continue to do it at a very high level. And Dickinson certainly leading the charge there. It's great to see he's going to be coming out with some more new music.
It's always amazing from a creative perspective, too. It's just like how many years he's been doing this, both solo and with Iron Maiden, and to think that he's still just churning out solo work on top of his schedule with Maiden is just amazing. Kind of looking into the article, they talk about this tour that he has through the Americas right now. He mentioned there's one song from Iron Maiden, the only song he's going to be performing during the solo set. It's a song called Revelations. That's what he considers to be one of his Iron Maiden songs, something that he wrote entirely by himself. And it does have some sentimental value with him going back to Rio, where they had such a huge presence. Tour starts August 22nd. I did see the closest they're coming is Louisville for Louder Than Life. They also have a date in Pittsburgh, but, certainly it would be cool to see him, and it's great to see that he's still just out there not slowing down.
Yeah, definitely one of those guys, whether it's as a solo act or with Iron Maiden, that I would still like to see before he hangs it up. And I think the big thing about this announcement is that clearly retirement is not anywhere near his thoughts at this point.
No.
That he's going to continue to make music, continue to go out on tour, which is great to see. One of the all-time great metal vocalists, and it's great to see that he's going out there and he's going to make some new music. And like you said, the fact he can continue to come up with new music all these years later, all the stuff he's written over the years is pretty incredible, to be honest with you. But check out the tour dates. Again, nothing real close to us. Louisville's not too far away, but it's a festival event. But Pittsburgh maybe a little bit farther of a drive. But definitely check out those dates. And if there's a date near you, stop on out and see Bruce Dickinson as he gets ready for a new album that will be recorded coming up in 2026. One other story that was kind of interesting, and I know you found kind of a second newsworthy note out of this story, is the news, and I saw a couple of different stories about it, that Metallica is not really subtly hinting that they're going to be looking at a Las Vegas Sphere residency once they are finished with their 2026 tour. Of course, the Sphere is and has been maybe the most hyped venue in the country, to be honest with you, since it was open a few years ago. And there have been a lot of really cool acts that have gone there. I know there's even been talk of WWE maybe holding a pay-per-view there. Just kind of taking advantage of some of the unique things you can do at the Sphere. And there were two different stories on Blabbermouth. This one from Lars Ulrich basically said that it was something they were keeping in mind. As this, of course, was announced as part of the announcement that they're going to have their own SiriusXM channel, which is another kind of big noteworthy thing, and almost surprising that it hasn't happened up to this point, considering not only their catalog, but again, if you start including bands that have been influenced by Metallica, you could fill 2 or 3 channels probably with their music. But again, interesting read. Lars is always an interesting character. Anytime he's in front of a microphone, you never know exactly what he's going to say, but obviously, both of those news points that came out of the story, good news for Metallica fans.
Yeah, absolutely. It was weird because reading the article, I kind of thought of kind of the 3 points that it mentioned. The Sphere residency potential was like the least noteworthy. Like, sure, they'd want to play that. Why not? He mentions in the article seeing U2 the first night they were there, and you know, obviously being blown away by the venue itself. And you're Metallica, so if it's something you want to have done, I'm pretty sure they won't deny you a residency if that's something that they can fit into a schedule. But yeah, the SiriusXM channel is another huge deal. Launching August 29th, channel 42 on SiriusXM. When you look at the artists who have kind of their own signature channels, Metallica's right there with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, we just lost Ozzy, but to suggest that to a lot of people, Metallica's on that same level as Ozzy Osbourne, I think that's totally fair. The other thing they mention, and to me this seems like a bigger headline than the residency, is that, you know, Lars mentions expressing interest in playing the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Super Bowl in 2026 is in San Francisco, their hometown. Just seems like an obvious fit, and it's way past due for a heavy metal band to play the Super Bowl halftime show, and if any band could pull it off, it would be them.
Yeah, I mean, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think if you think of the biggest metal band that is also kind of corporate,
yeah,
Metallica makes a ton of sense. They could put together a whole playlist of songs that are not going to really... You don't have to worry about the FCC getting involved or anybody being offended in any way. No. You can basically have your radio hits that they could play.
They're very sanitary.
Yeah, and of course it also opens the door for a lot of potential collaborations, because that's the other thing with these Super Bowl halftime shows. It's typically not just one artist. It's typically a lot of guest artists. So you've got some options there as well. Yeah, I mean, they're starting to fall into that category of, if not now, are they ever going to do it?
Yeah.
Like, because, you know, they're getting up there in age. I mean, obviously, you got a chance to see them a few months ago, and obviously still amazing. But, you know, that can change, obviously, very quickly. So, being in, you know, San Francisco, you know that stadium's going to be in a rotation of probably 6 or 7 venues that are going to get to host the Super Bowl somewhat regularly. But that also means the next one you're probably talking about, you know, past the
2032, 2033,
yeah, so
like that.
You know, what are those guys going to be? Where are they going to be at their career? You know, in 2032, 2033, are they even going to be in any kind of shape to play the Super Bowl, or maybe just have no desire at that point?
Well, it does seem typical. Like when they finally do get around to rock acts playing the Super Bowl, it's usually like well past their prime.
Yeah,
like it's still an enjoyable show, but it's not at the height of their commercial success. So, yeah, why not now?
Yeah, and, you know, it's something we've talked about it before. Like, the Super Bowl halftime show generally has been, at least in recent years, large pop acts, because I think their theory behind it is the Super Bowl halftime show is for the people who don't watch the Super Bowl.
Different audience.
Different audience. Those people are going to get snacks at halftime. But at the same time, like, could you find a big pop act and have them co-headline with Metallica, where you could make it work and have them duet on a song or two? And, you know, I feel like there's a way to make that happen where it wouldn't be, you know, you're not maybe losing your younger audience there. You know, again, there's several artists. You know, one whose name comes up every year who will probably never get the chance is Weird Al. Like, he's a guy who's, again, basically as, you know, PG as you can get, but a guy who's, you know, spanned decades now in his career that would probably put on a great show, but again, probably at this point not going to happen. So, I would love to see. I'm good with having pop acts most of the time, but I think every once in a while, when the situation calls for it, let's bring in a metal act that can come in, and it's got to start with them, and you start with them, you put them out there, and then hopefully every 3 or 4 years at least you can maybe rotate another rock or metal act in there, so it's not all pop acts.
Well, I think too, like probably 20, 25 years ago, you had that collaboration between Metallica and Ja Rule. They did a song together. You've had other artists sample Metallica over the years. It seems like something that should probably happen again pretty soon. You also had that giant, what was it called? I can't remember what the box set was called, but it basically was just a bunch of different artists covering Metallica songs, like the Blackest album or something like that.
Yeah, you could definitely, I'm sure there's at least a couple, and there's probably some pop acts, or even hip-hop acts that have been influenced by Metallica. They're just that big.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt. I was trying to see if I could find that.
That compilation album.
What was that?
But yeah, I do remember that.
The Blacklist. That's what it was. But
yeah, I mean, you're talking about, again, people coming in that some of those people would probably be on the list of people that you could bring in for this.
A lot of these people I've never heard of, so that should tell you something.
that made, obviously based on what
Jay Balvin did a Metallica song for that.
Wow, hopefully it was better than his voice acting role, which I almost picked that story too. He had another metal.
Oh, yeah. Miley Cyrus. Let's see. Chris Stapleton, he's somebody, right?
Yeah. But yeah.
Rodrigo E. Gabriela. Kamasi Washington. That's the dude that did the song for that anime.
Yeah.
Lazarus.
Yeah.
But yeah, tons of people. Darius Rucker's on here.
He's still around.
But yeah, who wouldn't jump at the chance? No matter what genre you perform, who wouldn't jump at the chance to perform with Metallica on a stage like that?
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I imagine if something is going to happen, we'll hear about it sooner rather than later because those 10 things tend to get leaked out early in the NFL season. But we'll keep an eye on that. And, of course, again, the Vegas residency thing would not be probably until the earliest 2027. It looks like they've got tour dates set up through most of 2026, so we'll keep an eye on that.
That venue's probably booked as well. So
yeah, it's, it's a 17,000-seat venue, so if you can bring a band in there to fill that thing most of the time, and Vegas needs it right now, definitely looking to get some more tourists in Las Vegas, so that would make a ton of sense to bring them in. And like I said, I don't know who's currently residing there. There's been several. The article mentioned several acts that have been in there. So like you said, I'm sure there are more that have set up through 2026. But, something to keep an eye on for sure. And the SiriusXM channel, obviously check that out as well because we need more rock SiriusXM channels and less of whatever else
not rock.
Yes, for sure. But those are our news headlines for today. Don't forget to check out our website, nerdcastempire.com. We'll be back again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Next weekend, we'll be checking out the music of July the 25th as we are wrapping up the month of July in music. And so make sure you join us next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. But it is time to get to this week's music, and as I get ready to talk about that, we will paste the playlist that Mike has created in YouTube into the chat on both YouTube and Twitch. And, of course, that is where you can find a song from, I would say, most, or at least all the ones you need to be concerned about, the releases from July the 18th. And you can go through and pick your favorite songs for this week, but Mike puts that together every week. And then we each choose 2 new albums that we want to spotlight on this podcast. And Mike in the open mentioned several other ones that we won't necessarily, well, there's one of the ones he mentioned we'll be spotlighting, but there were several other ones that he mentioned that came out that are definitely worth checking out. So make sure you go back and do that. Check out the playlist, and definitely some good stuff in there that we didn't pick, or bigger artists maybe that we kind of let go, but definitely worth looking into each and every week. And, of course, you can check out his YouTube page, and that is where you can go back and look at previous playlists Really back as far as we've done this thing, as far as he's put, there's a lot of playlists. And assuming that the videos haven't been taken down or privated, which does happen sometimes in playlists, you can go back weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. This is, of course, episode 77 of the Hard Rock Empire, episode number 180 of the Nerdcast Empire. So you got a lot of weeks to choose from. So if you're looking for a workout playlist to check out, that's not a bad one to put into your phone or whatever your listening device might be. But having said that, we are on to the music of July the 18th. And again, some good stuff again this week. Mike's going to get it kicked off as always. Mike, what do you have for us first this week?
Well, first, it does make me wonder how much longer I can just keep making new playlists before it's like, hey, you need to start deleting playlists. I don't know what the limit there is.
That's a great question. I don't know if there actually is a limit or not. We're going to find out.
It sure seems that way. Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that there were 2 albums that came out featuring former vocalists from Iced Earth. I did my best to only pick one of them, and I managed that. So my first album is from the band Ashes of Aries. It is their 4th full-length studio album, New Messiahs.
Yeah, I thought both of the albums, what I've listened to, both of them from the former vocalist of Iced Earth, both sounded really good. So I think if you take a listen to the other one, I think you'll be really happy with that as well. But this one certainly excellent as well.
Yeah, and when you listen to both of them, you can't help but think Iced Earth because both vocalists have such a unique sound that you just equate to that band.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one, the vocalist in question is Matt Barlow. This band formed in 2012 with him, Freddie Vidalis, who also played guitar with Iced Earth for a while, and former Nevermore drummer Van Williams. For my whole time as a fan of Iced Earth, Matt Barlow, Stu Block, and maybe to a little lesser extent, Tim Ripper Owens are kind of the singers that come to mind. They're the voices of that band. Matt Barlow was their singer when I first discovered their music. Horror Show back from 2001 was the first album of theirs I listened to. If you're ever interested in both his sound and the band Iced Earth, that's a good place to start. Check out the track Wolf because it's just a ridiculous song and his vocals are great on it. Barlow himself has had a pretty interesting career. Active since 1988. He sang for Iced Earth first from 1995 to 2002. After 9/11, he decided he wanted to leave the music scene and kind of contribute to the real world, and he ended up becoming a police officer in Delaware. Which, 9/11 had an impact on a lot of people. I think sometimes when something that traumatic happens, you kind of reevaluate your life, and that's clearly what happened to him. In 2007, he joined the band Pyramaze as vocalist because at the time he could do that while still working his normal job. At the end of that year, though, he was back with Iced Earth. He left in 2011 once again due to commitments with his family and kind of understanding that Iced Earth was going to have to tour more than maybe he was willing to. So it was a year after that he formed Ashes of Aries. You can't listen to this and not think Iced Earth, which isn't a bad thing because I'm a fan. Freddie Vidalis plays both guitar and bass on the album and does an amazing job. Kyle Taylor's been their session drummer since 2020. However, I did notice on the Metal Archives, they credit Todd Latour for being on the album as well, but it doesn't mention what he does. So maybe he plays drums on some tracks, maybe he provides backing vocals. Either one seems totally plausible, but that dude's immensely talented as well. So, and he's done a lot of guest vocals on albums throughout the years too, on top of his work as the singer of Queensryche. There is a CD exclusive bonus track on the album, a cover of Elton John's "And the House Fell Down." I couldn't find it online anywhere, so I haven't heard it yet. But they do have some other covers that are definitely worth checking out as well since they started doing music back in 2012. You have "You Know My Name," a cover of a Chris Cornell track from 2018's "Well of Souls." And then 2 covers on their Throne of Iniquity EP, 25 or 6 to 4, cover of the classic Chicago track, and a cover of Kansas's "Dust in the Wind." So if you ever wonder what it sounded like for Matt Barlow to sing on those songs, you have your opportunity, and it's worth checking out. Standout tracks on this album include New Messiahs, Two Graves, Where You Go, Keep on Walking, The Hawk and the Dove, and the track that I picked to listen to, Wake of Vultures.
Let's check that out now. This is Ashes of Aries with their new release, New Messiahs. This is the 5th track off of this album, Wake of Vultures. Let's check a little bit of that out now. Yeah, I mean, again, it definitely has that reminiscent Ice Earth sound that is clearly evident there, but it does. I mean, there are some differences there as well. It definitely has its own identity there. Anytime you have the same lead singer that's kind of the classic lineup, you're gonna certainly hear it for sure. But overall, this is what I've heard of these guys so far. It's got a great sound to it. It's great rock music, and kind of excited to get to check more of this out.
Yeah, kind of bummed I haven't listened to their stuff more since they've been around as long as they have, but definitely need to check out some of their back catalog as well.
But yeah, definitely check those guys out. Ashes of Aries, Mike's first pick for this week. As always, you have 2 picks, and a really good pick. This was one that was kind of on my radar as well this week, but what do you have for pick number 2?
Yeah, so pick number 2, I don't know if it was maybe because of that Steve Hackett album like a week or so ago. I was just kind of in a prog mood, but this definitely jumped out to me. It is the second full-length album from a solo project that Kyle McNeil has. He's the vocalist and guitarist from the traditional heavy metal band Seven Sisters. His solo project is called Phantom Spell, and this album is Heather and Hearth.
Yeah, this is definitely something unique, which it's always... Especially on a week like this week where I felt like there was not a ton of like amazing stuff, the really good stuff kind of jumps to the top, and this was one that definitely caught my attention.
Yeah, this is certainly different than my usual pick, and that's not always a bad thing as well. His band Seven Sisters had an album earlier this year that I recall enjoying. I think it was back from March. But I didn't know about the connection between that and this until I'd listened to this a few times, kind of did some more research and found that this was his thing. I said it before, I love traditional heavy metal. I think between that and capturing that kind of early progressive sound from the 70s, you get something really cool. This album has acoustic guitars, some cool electric riffs that kind of give you Queen vibes. You got synths, you got a Hammond organ at times, just everything you want. It sounds like the coolest prog album from 1975, and can't get enough of that. Also, I'm always blown away when you find something like this and then find out it's basically just a one-man thing. Like this, it has such a robust sound. It just doesn't seem possible that it's one guy executing the vast majority of the work here. It doesn't seem possible. The album artwork, which is worth checking out as well, credited to Jean Demer. Really awesome. Definitely fits the sound. I would give you standout tracks, but there are only 5 of them. Don't let the fact that the first and final track are being over 10 minutes, don't let that stop you. It's 5 tracks, 36 minutes, and really, really cool, progressive, folky at times, traditional metal. On his Bandcamp, I see the vinyl is sold out for 2 pressings already, so hopefully there'll be more in the future. But there are also other cool merch that he has there, some really cool patches, CD and a slip sleeve you can buy, a tote bag. Worth checking out, because this is the kind of music that needs as much support as possible, because it's just, you're not going to hear this on mainstream radio, and that's unfortunate. I mentioned no standout tracks because it's all standout, but the track that I picked to listen to is the song Evil Hand.
Check these guys out. It's Phantom Spell with their new album Heather and Hearth. This is the 3rd track off of that album, Evil Hand. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. Yeah, it's got a great classic rock sound, but also obviously you've got the progressive stuff in there as well. And like you said, the 2 long tracks, it makes it feel like, it's going to be very proggy, but at the same time, like you said, only 5 songs. So if it were 10 songs in 36 minutes, you wouldn't bat an eye at it. But
yeah,
maybe it's a Bad Religion album then. I don't know, but actually it'd be like 10 songs in like 30 minutes probably, but this was one that was definitely on my radar. They've got a great sound, great vocals. There's a little more metal to it than maybe some of the prog bands that we come across that are almost exclusively trying to sound like they're from the 70s and 80s. This definitely has that, electric guitar that comes in that gives it that metal bass to go with the progressive sounds as well. But overall, it's what I've heard of this so far is really, really good.
There are times I think it's like Yes meets Styx listening to it. And, I mentioned also there's some Queen thrown in there with some of maybe the guitar harmonies. And, yeah, it doesn't sacrifice rocking. It certainly rocks, but has that folksy plus prog infusion. It's really cool and probably one of my favorite things so far this year.
Yeah, definitely check that out on July the 18th. Phantom Spell, their new release, so make sure you pick that up. I've got 2 picks as well this week, and we are headed to our friends at Frontiers Records to get us started here, but this is a really good one. This is a project of an Argentinian singer. This is Ramonda with The Walls Are Crumbling Down. And the singer in question is Santiago Ramonda. This is his debut album. Originally started in 2007 with a guitar, but then transitioned to singing, basically seeing a lot of the big vocalists from the 80s and 90s as inspiration, which will not be a surprise when you hear the music. What was the thing that got him on people's radars is he posted a cover on his YouTube page of Joe Lynn Turner's Prelude / Endlessly that got everybody's attention, evidently. That's when the label started looking, and of course, Leave It to Frontiers to find that video and bring him in. And of course, it was Serafino Perugino who actually was the one that put all this together himself, which of course means that our good friend Alessandro Del Vecchio is going to be involved as well. Santiago Ramonda on vocals. Suresh Sun is on guitars. He's probably better known at this point for his work with Girish and the Chronicles. So another crossover there with Frontiers. Silvia Pistolesi on bass. Alessandro Del Vecchio on keyboards and additional guitars. And Nicholas Papapico on drums. Headbangers Lifestyle had a review of this. I thought they summed it up best, saying the album's construction is classic Frontiers, big choruses, tight arrangement, and a glossy production. What surprises the effective use of space and dynamics. Songs build patiently versus a smolder before erupting into cathartic hooks, and solos are woven into the fabric rather than pasted on as afterthoughts. Yeah, to me, it's the formula that Frontiers uses, but you can tell there was really some work that went into these tracks that kind of elevate them above maybe your average Frontiers release. For a debut effort, it's really, really good. Kind of excited to see where Ramonda goes from here. But standout tracks on this include Under the Moonlight, Fight Fire, With Fire, Bad Girl, and the title track we're going to listen to on the podcast, The Walls Are Crumbling Down. So check this out now. This is Ramonda, the debut release. The album is The Walls Are Crumbling Down. This is the title track. It is track number 2. Let's listen to a little bit of that now.
Hear the cries in the night. Our children died under the gun. The walls are crumbling down at your feet. Soldiers without hope, how can they resist? How can we go on in our lost horizon while the walls are crumbling down? The walls are crumbling down. Wherever we see they try.
Yeah, I mean, again, no real surprises if you're a fan of Frontiers acts, but overall, I thought this was really outstanding. And again, for a debut album, really good stuff, and excited to kind of see where he goes from here. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, you don't want to constantly lean in on the Frontier stuff, but then, each week there'll be 1 or 2 releases, and you're just like, this is really good. I can't not pick it. And I think we're running into that. Also kind of wild to think that, and refreshing that there are people out there, great vocalists, who are inspired by music that other people have long since dismissed and are using that as a vehicle to be discovered and brought into the fold into Frontiers or other labels, and getting the chance to record this great music. It's reassuring in some way.
Yeah, it is for sure. And again, they just seem to find these guys. And again, posting that cover on YouTube was what opened the door for him. And now here he is playing alongside these talented musicians and getting a chance to show what he can do. So really exciting stuff. Definitely check out Ramonda. Excited to see where he goes from here.
But I think we see that in other forms of music too. Even like Japanese music, where you have someone that just happened to be discovered by doing covers on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's not exclusive to hard rock. It's great from a talent acquisition standpoint because you can basically scout the entire world without leaving your house.
Well, and I think it's indicative of these types of music where musicianship is really important, because it's one of those things we've talked about on our anime podcast about Japan, is that it's a culture that really believes in music, and music is a huge part of what they do. And you see these, all girl bands where every one of them's playing instruments and playing at a high level. Marty Friedman taking all these young Japanese artists on tour, and they're just so amazing. And it's like, this is, this community, and you see it here with metal, that the still that craftsmanship's still there as well, which is exciting. That, if you're really good at this and you're inspired, in this day and age, somebody might find you, and then who knows where your career is going to go from there.
And I get the feeling that same kind of infrastructure exists in places that we see on a weekly basis, whether it's your Swedens, your Italys, any number of countries in South America that seem to still really love hard rock and metal, that they're able to produce this kind of talent. I'm sure it's here in America. You just don't hear about it as much.
Right, for sure. But yeah, definitely check out Ramonda. I really, really like this album. This is really, really good stuff from them. As always, I have 2 picks. It's time to move on to pick number 2. We're going to go across the border for this one to the north. We are headed to Canada for pick number 2 this week. This is a Canadian rock band from Calgary, Alberta. This is in Vertigo with their new EP, Prevail. This is an interesting band. I really enjoyed this, even though just as an EP, it was a really catchy EP. This band was founded in 2016. This is their second EP. The band is made up of Reed Alton on lead and backing vocals and percussion, Shadi Elsegier on lead and rhythm guitar, I should say, Duncan McCartney on bass, backing vocals and keyboards, Carter Buse on drums, percussion, backing vocals, and Brandon Haddow on rhythm guitars. They've been working on this EP since 2020, so it's a 5-year project that is now paid off in this EP. They've been on stage with acts such as Buck Cherry, Diamond Head, Pop Evil, John Corabi, among others. So these guys have been out there getting a chance to open for a lot of these acts. To me, immediately when I listen to these guys, I get an extreme vibe from them. There is the hard rock element, there's the great vocals, but there's also, in addition to maybe a little bit of punk, a little bit of funk as well, which I really enjoy. Anytime a band can kind of throw that in there as well. These guys are really talented. It's great to see them continue to put out music, and excited to see where they go. Now a member of the Rock Shots record label, which is a record label we've been seeing more and more releases from each and every week. So maybe could be the prelude to potentially a full-length album from these guys in the future, which I would certainly be very excited about. Standout tracks, again, it's an EP, so you're going to listen to the whole thing. The song we're going to listen to on the podcast is the opening track to this EP. It is Weather Vane. Check these guys out. This is in Vertigo with their new EP, Prevail. This is the opening track off of that EP, Weather Vane. Let's listen to a little bit of that now. But yeah, I get a little bit of funk there. There may be even a little Buck Cherry there in the guy's voice. I think, but overall, it's just a catchy EP. It goes really quick. It's 13 minutes for 4 songs, so it's definitely an easy listen. But I really dug it, and I'm excited to see if these guys maybe give us something a little more along the lines of a full album coming up in the next year or so. But Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think any band who can share a stage with Buck Cherry, Diamond Head, and John Corabi is probably something I'm going to enjoy, and these guys certainly did not disappoint.
Yeah, for sure. And again, the fact that they're on this label now, I'm really excited to see maybe with additional support, they could really get a chance to take off. But again, great to see a North American band putting out this kind of music. So excited to see where this takes them from here. But definitely check out Vertigo with their new EP out on July the 18th. That wraps up our new music, and it's time to head into the vault where Mike and I will each give you a classic album to check out. Mike is continuing through his vault for the third time, and he's headed toward the end. We are on to the letter W, which, as we get to these later letters, sometimes can be a little bit of a challenge, but you got a good pick this week. What do you have for the letter W?
Yeah, this was a band I've probably wanted to talk about for a while, just haven't gotten around to them because, going through the alphabet, you only get to the letter W every so often. But joining the ranks of Wigwam and War Babies, this week we have the 2001 album from the band W.A.S.P. This is their album, Unholy Terror.
Yeah, great band. Excited that they're still out there, still hanging in there, which is great to see in some shape or form. Obviously, they've been around for a long time, but excited to hear a little bit more about this album in particular.
Yeah, it's always fun going back and talking about these bands who, like so many this time through the alphabet, I got into after they had reached, the peak of their career. They were on the downswing. The first album of W.A.S.P. that I remember getting new was the one before this, Eldorado, which I enjoyed. I mean, it sounds like W.A.S.P. Blackie Lawless is pretty much the creative driving force of the band. If you like some of their music, you probably like all of their music. Not a bad thing, but you know what you're getting yourself into. I remember Eldorado had some cool songs like the title track, Damnation Angels, Can't Die Tonight. But it was this one from 2001 that kind of stuck with me a little more. I also noticed that it seems to be long since out of print, because if you go on eBay, you can get a copy of it for like $40 to $50. So not super easy to get a hold of. I think it's another one of those Sanctuary Records albums that I don't know what happened to them as a company, but their stuff just isn't really super easy to find anymore. This was the last album to feature the guitarist Chris Holmes. He played with W.A.S.P. from 83 to 90, then once again from 96 to 2001. He's also notable for that scene from the documentary Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years, where he's being interviewed while getting drunk in a pool with his mom sitting by the pool. That's like one of those like iconic, when they talk about this style of music falling apart, that's like one of the scenes you always see for whatever reason. But classic for sure. I was also reading on Wikipedia about the origin of the band's name. They've been using the moniker Sister, and apparently the W.A.S.P. name stemmed from the former bassist killing a hornet outside of Blackie Lawless's house and telling Blackie the story about it. He liked the idea of W.A.S.P. and decided to then make it an acronym because he thought the periods was something no one's ever done before and it would make their name stand out. I don't know if no one had ever done it up to that point, but it does kind of stand out. So evidently it didn't stand for white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, or we are sexual perverts, or winged assassins. Or as Lawless answered in an interview at one point, we ain't sure, pal, which I think honestly would have been the better option. Yeah, again, this sounds like W.A.S.P., and if you like W.A.S.P., you'll enjoy it. You mentioned they're still out there. Good to see them still touring. I think he had suffered an injury recently, so the last time I saw them live, he was actually like on a stool because he couldn't stand up, but still sounded fine. Kind of hard to believe that their last album of theirs I'd listened to, the new album, was back from 2015, Golgotha, which was really good as well. Standout tracks on this album, Unholy Terror, Let It Roar, Hate to Love Me, Locomotive Man. They kind of have this cool, the title track, Unholy Terror, like bleeds into the next track, Charisma. And to me, it's what stands out most about the album to me. Unholy Terror is this really slow building thing, and then Charisma's got kind of all the energy to it. Both those tracks are really awesome. Then you have Who Slayed Baby Jane and Evermore. Maybe an underrated W.A.S.P. album because it was kind of well after their pinnacle, but still worth checking out, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I always have dug their sound, so I'm sure this album is really good as well. And again, great to see that they've continued to put out music. Although, like you said, 2015, their last album, would be cool if maybe they would get something new in the works. Always great to hear more music from them. You covered all the W.A.S.P. related stuff, so I thought it'd be worth just mentioning as a footnote the album art, which of course you can see on the screen on YouTube and on Twitch, was done by John Kosh, who, if you go to his Wikipedia page, has done a ton of artwork, maybe one of the best as far as artwork in the business. But of note to me, he did the artwork for Hotel California, which was number 6 on Rolling Stone's 100 Best Album Covers of All Time. Also did the long run Eagles Live and Eagles Greatest Hits Volume 2. He designed the band's logo for the Electric Light Orchestra.
Wow.
And did a new world record and Out of the Blue. There's a ton, if you go through his Wikipedia page, of albums that he has done the artwork for. So cool. And he did most of the artwork for W.A.S.P. during their career, if not all of it. So
Hugh Syme can't do all of the album artwork, I guess.
got to have some other guys in the business. But just a really cool note there. And again, obviously great band. A lot of good stuff from them, so it's definitely worth checking this out if you get a chance. If you can find it, I saw it was, when I was pulling the artwork, I saw you could buy it on Amazon for like $78 or something like that.
Yeah, definitely check eBay. You might find a deal. Might be able to get an import at a somewhat reasonable price. But yeah, I think a lot of that early 2000s stuff you're going to find just was released by smaller labels and kind of disappeared.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of hard to find. You may have to stick with streaming aspects of finding these albums, but definitely check out W.A.S.P., Mike's vault pick for this week. I am continuing on through my journey through Frontiers Records. We are on to the letter K. This week was my choice. Next week, the randomizer chose, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But a few weeks ago, back actually in January, or as of the music of January 24th, I chose the second Kiske Somerville album from 2015 as my vault pick. So I thought this would be a good time to go back and pick the first Kiske Somerville album as my vault pick for this week. So that is what we are going to do. This was from 2010. Of course, everybody knows, if you listen to this podcast, you certainly know Michael Kiske, of course, of Halloween, Unisonic, other places as well. We've talked about him quite a bit of late. And Amanda Somerville, who's been with Ina, HDK, Trillium, and Epica, among other places as well. This is another project of Serafino Perugino, who decided we need to put something together, so he hired Matt Sinner of Sinner and Primal Fear, and Magnus Carlsen, also of Primal Fear, and pretty much Frontier's legend at this point, to basically write the songs for a potential duet project with Kiske and Somerville. This was what they did. They also got some input from Sander Gomans of After Forever and Somerville herself. The aforementioned musicians, together with Jimmy Kresick of Voodoo Circle, Martin Schmidt, and Rami Ali, provided the instrumentation for the album. Was released on September the 24th, 2010. Getting a chance to listen to this album feels a little more classic rock to me than maybe melodic rock. It definitely feels a little more to that end of the spectrum, but it's really good. It's definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of anything anybody I just mentioned is involved with. There's a good chance you're going to enjoy this, but it wasn't as hard as maybe I thought it would be. It's definitely a little more mellow, but excellent front to back. And again, you should listen to it front to back because it's all good, but standout tracks include Nothing Left to Say, Silence, If I Had a Wish, and 1,000 Suns. I mean, what can you say? There's just too much talent on this for it to be bad. It's, of course, not bad. It's really, really good. And it's been 10 years since Kiske and Somerville got together. Obviously, Kiske is very busy right now. I'm sure Somerville is as well, but it would be cool to see if maybe somewhere down the road Frontiers can put them back in the studio together and do something new again, because Frontiers doesn't seem to miss with these duet albums that they've done over the years, and this one is no exception to that. Mike, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, just another great kind of duet projects that Frontier seems to put together. They also seem to always have Magnus Carlsen do a lot of the heavy lifting on these. You think that he wrote a lot of the stuff, not only for the Kiske Somerville albums, but also like the Alan Land stuff, the Alan Olsen stuff as well, and Ed Olsen and Russell Allen. So I mean, you're always going to get something that in a different world has all sorts of hit potential.
Yeah.
Like, it may not be hit potential in post 2000s music landscape, but always really catchy and just great songwriting, and this is no exception.
Yeah, really good stuff. And again, any of the duet acts Mike mentioned, I mean, we've talked about several of them on this podcast already, and we'll probably talk about them again, but you can't go wrong with any of those albums for sure. But this one from 2010, definitely worth checking out. Kiske Somerville's self-titled debut together back in 2010. That's going to get through the vault next week. I should mention, this is a band, a guy from a band that Mike and I have seen on a couple different occasions, but it's been many, many years. We're going to be looking at a solo album from Kelly Keagy. Of course, we've had a chance to see him, behind the drum kit, and what's he going to do as the front man? And I have not actually had a chance to look at this album yet. But in addition to having Keagy from Night Ranger, it has Jim Peterick, Reb Beach, and Michael Lardy involved. The album is "I'm Alive" from 2007. So I'm really excited to get a chance to check that out and see what that sounds like. That'll be coming up next week on The Vault. But it is time to get to the Power Trio. It's your hard rock hat trick every week, where we give you questions, or we give our panelists questions, and they will give us 3 of some sort of answer to that. And while I tee this up, it's a good time to mention you should join our Discord. I have not yet pasted that link in the chat. I will do that now, where you can, of course, give us your answers to the Power Trio each and every week, or you can let us know potentially what bands you've chosen out of Mike's playlist every week. So definitely worth checking that out. The Discord link is now posted in both chats, so make sure you check that out. But this week, some weeks you try to come up with questions maybe that are a little easier. Sometimes you don't know how easy they're going to be until people dig into them. But what I went with this week was your top 3 favorite musicians who've had standout careers with either 2 different bands or with one band and as a solo artist. And some of these people will be more than 2 bands. I guess I should mention that as well. The original thought was to do vocalists, but I thought maybe that would be limiting a little bit, especially considering how much overlap there is in our music taste, that potentially we could end up picking the same people. So I opened it up to musicians to see, if that kind of opened it up. And I think it did. I think that definitely gave us a little more of a wide range of artists to choose from. We didn't hear from Shane this week, but I believe we have some stuff from Chris from earlier. You can let us know, Mike, what Chris had to say this week.
Yeah, so Chris and I both kind of had a similar idea of kind of having 2 trios, one where we focused on vocalists and then one where we opened it up apart from vocalists. For him, for his vocalist group, he has, not too surprisingly, Maynard James Keenan.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Tool, Perfect Circle, totally fitting. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Mike Patton, Faith No More, Mr. Bungle.
Oh, yeah.
Dude's a legend as well. And then Phil Anselmo, obviously Pantera, Down, Superjoint Ritual. Dude's a classic vocalist from a time where metal wasn't maybe the most popular. He kind of carried the flag, and Pantera as well. But I can't go wrong with any of those.
No, not at all.
If you want to go to not vocalists, he is going with Matt Cameron, who's been a drummer for both Pearl Jam and Soundgarden.
Okay.
I think he just recently left Pearl Jam too, but I think I saw that a couple weeks ago. Jason Newsted, Metallica, any number of his own projects, Flotsam and Jetsam, I think before Metallica. Then Max Cavalera, dude's a legend as well in the metal scene. But yeah, no disputes there.
Yeah, all very talented musicians, multiple successes out of their career. So I think those are all very legitimate picks as well. But like you said, I think you have multiple lists as well. So what do you have for us?
Yeah, so for my vocalist list, I did go with one just stupid, obvious one that I kind of mentioned in the chat, but it's hard to not pick Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
Dude's amazing. Solo career, multiple bands. Obviously, hit songs with Rainbow originally, Man on the Silver Mountain, Stargazer. His work with Black Sabbath. Just some of my favorite Sabbath songs are Dio Sabbath songs.
Yeah.
Neon Nights, Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell, Time Machine. Just a lot of great stuff there. Then, obviously, his solo career, Holy Diver, Rainbow in the Dark, Last in Line, Hungry for Heaven. Dude was a legend.
Which of those careers was best?
Ooh, man, that's
If you could only keep the songs from one of those three, Rainbow, Sabbath, or Solo, which would it be?
the quick answer. Solo,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's the right answer. I feel like he probably, if I went back and listened to it all again, I would probably lean more on the Black Sabbath side. But it is hard to not say Solo. Just, I mean, Holy Diver, Rainbow the Dark alone, Last in Line. Just, man, that's difficult because,
Yeah.
you know, anything he was a part of, he kind of made it his. So, like, even his Sabbath and Rainbow stuff, you feel like is Dio stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I thought it would be. It's not as obvious an answer as I think you initially would think it would be. Like, 'cause again, I think Solo stuff was, I think, commercially bigger for sure.
Probably, yeah.
And maybe more crossover from rock and metal to maybe more mainstream music.
I think Rainbow had so many iterations after him.
Yeah.
And then obviously Sabbath was always going to kind of be Ozzy's no matter who, all the different singers they had over the years. And great singers, by the way. People equate it with Ozzy. That's unavoidable.
Yeah,
Whether it's fair or not.
Yeah. Okay, that was one. A bonus question thrown in there. What else do you have for us?
Next one, definitely more on the my taste in music side as far as not necessarily super commercially viable, but stuff I like. And that's Tobias Sammet,
Yeah.
Ed Guy, Avantasia. Both amazing, both different. Avantasia is almost cheating because it's such an ensemble cast of so many musicians. But, you know, I probably wouldn't be into that if I didn't know about Ed Guy first.
Yeah.
And just the work that he's done with them over the years. Still hoping someday we'll see more of that. But dude's just a great songwriter, great singer. What can you say?
Yeah, I mean, he's awesome. Obviously, we've talked about it. My wish for more Ed Guy somewhere down the road, maybe. Whether that'll ever happen or not, I don't know, but he's certainly amazing.
And then for number 3, I don't want to say this is a more modern one. I mean, it's more modern than the Dio pick, not so much than Sammet, but Scott Weiland.
Yeah.
Stone Temple Pilots, Velvet Revolver. You know, we only got 2 albums from Velvet Revolver, but like
They were good.
they were. When I first heard them, I was just like, okay, we're rock's back. Like we're doing this. Like
Yeah.
it's just something they were doing where you had Stone Temple Pilots and Guns N' Roses, but this didn't feel like either of those. Like
Yeah.
Slash has a playing style, but you didn't think this was ripping off GNR. It felt fresh. It was like, at the time, it was the most exciting hard rock that was being made.
Yep.
And getting to see them live was really awesome. Scott Weiland had a stage presence that, to me, a lot of frontmen don't have. And, you know, can't argue with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe the most underrated pick on our entire list is Weiland, and he's maybe one of the most talented on the whole list. And that's considering guys like Dio and, you know, obviously Chris's list as well. Just a genius of music.
Yeah, I feel like he may not get the same due as some of the other grunge era vocalists who met untimely ends. I don't know if people see him on that same level, but I think he's right up there at the top.
I 100% agree with that. So that's your vocalist list.
Yeah, so for my non-vocalist, I can't not start with Marty Friedman.
Sure.
His solo work, his work with Cacophony and Jason Becker, into the Megadeth stuff. I mean, you could tout all the amazing stuff he's done on either side of that, but, you know, being guitarist for Rust in Peace, Countdown to Extinction, all the way through Risk, Say What You Want About Risk, still a good album. And then that whole time still churning out solo work, and what he's done since as far as moving to Japan and having such a presence in their hard rock scene. Dude is fascinating and just immensely talented.
Yeah, no question. He's an obvious choice, but that's an obvious choice you have to make because I don't think you can start with anybody else as far as musicians without starting with Marty Friedman.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 2, someone whose name and contemporaries come up a lot, especially recently. I feel like we're always talking about some album of his or theirs or someone connected to them. Kai Hansen.
Yeah.
Obviously one of the founders of Halloween, played with them originally through Keeper Part 2 in 1988, rejoined them in 2017, and will still be with them with their forthcoming album. Then, you know, when he left Halloween, started Gamma Ray.
Yeah.
Who are an amazing band in their own right. And then beyond that, Unisonic had albums with them that were really good. I mean, dude is like Marty Friedman, just immensely talented. He's a little more focused than Friedman as far as the style of music he plays, but still, I mean, just great work.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that guy's so good, and it's great to see him back with Halloween. Again, as I lament Ed Guy, I also lament Unisonic. We talked about that last week or the week before, that I hate that there's not going to be more Unisonic because it was so unique, really.
Yeah.
But just an incredible talent.
Unisonic felt like we're going to create easily digestible, more hooky and poppy Halloween songs.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how I looked at it. And number 3, maybe a little out of the box compared to my first 2, but I'm going with Brooks Wackerman. Drummer for Bad Religion, for the albums that I most associate with my fandom of them, from Process of Belief to 2002 to 2013's True North and Christmas Songs. Left them, ultimately joined Avenged Sevenfold, and he's now drumming for them. So, you know, he's been on their albums The Stage and their most recent Life Is But a Dream. 2 pretty different styles of music. Both definitely require aggressive drumming, but, you know, that's kind of where the similarities between Bad Religion and Avenged Sevenfold end. So to think he could fit in so well in both bands, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, tremendous. And I'd forgotten about him moving on to Avenged Sevenfold after leaving Bad Religion. But yeah, I mean, talking about his success, you know, an incredibly talented guy. And talking about music that's probably a little bit different to drum to, stuff that, you know, Bad Religion being more kind of punk, and Avenged Sevenfold maybe a little bit more toward the rock side of the spectrum. And obviously, gotta have a little more stamina for the Avenged Sevenfold songs.
You get the feeling like the only similarities is that somewhere for about 2 minutes inside of a 5-minute Avenged Sevenfold song, it feels the same.
Yeah.
And then there's the rest of the song, whereas with Bad Religion, it's like, I need to go hard for about 1:44, then I can take a drink.
For sure. But no, great picks for sure. So I only got around to the vocalist list, and I've decided to, as I figured you guys would have the metal world covered, so I decided to go more toward the classic rock end of things. I originally was going, I mean, because obviously I could pick 2 or 3 members of the Eagles for this category.
Yeah.
But I'm going to leave them off. But I will, just as an honorable mention, shout out, obviously, Glenn Frey, who was actually going to be my pick because I always talk about Don Henley and his talent. But, you know, Glenn Frey's solo stuff is really good as well, in addition to the stuff with the Eagles. Obviously, Joe Walsh had a big career before he joined the Eagles, and then went on to do more solo stuff later on. So he would be worth mentioning as well. But so we'll stay away from the Eagles. The other 3 are just strictly classic rock guys, kind of off the board. So I wanted to go with maybe not obvious picks of people that I talk about a lot on this podcast. Let's start off with Lionel Richie. Huge success with the Commodores, left the Commodores, had his solo career, and then obviously had a lot of success in the 80s with pop rock songs that went to the top of the charts.
Yeah, I can't really dispute that. I mean, the guy is a legend.
Speaking of legends, Eric Clapton. Clapton with Cream, Derek and the Dominoes, the Yardbirds, and then obviously a solo career as well. Obviously, Derek and the Dominoes brought Layla, which kind of allowed him to transition into a solo career as well. But and obviously we would cross over on the musician side as well, being a guitarist too. But what can you say? Clapton just had a ton of success really everywhere he went.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad that I've never delved into some of his older work because I feel like because of my age, I know him primarily from his solo work, his, Change the World, Tears in Heaven stuff. And not necessarily my cup of tea, but like I know that he's a big deal. I just haven't listened to enough of his older work.
Yeah, I think that's really where the more rock side comes in when you get back to the stuff from Cream and Derek and the Dominoes and the Yardbirds as well. I'm going way off the board for the final pick. We're going to go with Jerry Rafferty. He started with Steelers Wheel, which, of course, everybody knows the song Stuck in the Middle with You, classic song. But then he went into a solo career, and Baker Street is a classic 70s, 80s song. That was really my first introduction to him because I didn't really know he was a Steelers wheel when I heard Stuck in the Middle with You, which obviously continues on as a big song even to this day, especially, when you write a song about clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right, like people use those references all the time.
Yeah.
But shout out to Jerry Rafferty. We're throwing him in there for pick number 3. Just, again, something way off the board for a pick.
I think every now and then it's good to come up with one of those that no one is thinking about. It's just it's what makes this fun. Going back to the Joe Walsh thing, I think that's an interesting idea too, where you have the solo artist who's immensely successful who then joins a band.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of the Sammy Hagar route too, where it's like, dude had a prolific career, then decided to sign on to sing with Van Halen. I think that's a different. It's the same category for what we're talking about now, but it's also kind of a different thing than what we see with a lot of the picks.
Yeah, I think, and there's really 2 directions you can go with that, and maybe we'll throw that in there for next week because we're always looking for topics for this. Because you have the guys like Joe Walsh and you have guys like Sammy Hagar who are joining established bands. Now, you could argue that the Eagles are a supergroup, but they really weren't in the way that you think of a supergroup. They just kind of turned out that way.
Yeah.
The other side to it is where you have these established solo guys join up with other established solo guys to join a supergroup. And that's kind of the second category where it's like, this guy doesn't need to join a band, but now he's decided he wants to get together with 2 or 3 other guys and create this band that's going to do amazing things as well.
Now, was Lindsey Buckingham kind of like that? Like, he had a career prior to Fleetwood Mac that had some success?
Yeah, for sure. He was really talented. Stevie Nicks as well. They both came in together, and I think both of them had some level of success before Fleetwood Mac, and obviously then there's another category. Both of them returned to the solo after being booted from the band after the band stopped for a while.
Like sandwich route where you have the career, then you're in a band, then you have the solo career on the back end as well.
And they've got like the Subway multi-decker sandwich where
not the healthiest thing.
No, either the sandwich or the career, but and supposedly the rumors, pun intended, is that they may be getting back together again for another run, which anytime those bands can make amends and get back together, especially at a time where we're losing some of these classic artists, I think it's a great thing.
The reality is it's so easy now to just create something, even if it's just a couple songs, throw it on the internet and people will buy it. Like, you don't have to, it isn't like, well, if we get back together, we need to secure a deal. We're going to have to write a couple albums, go on this huge tour. Like, it's all so DIY now. Like, you can decide how far you want to go into it.
Yeah, and one thing we haven't seen a lot of, we did during the pandemic for obvious reasons, but one thing we haven't seen a lot of is bands deciding to maybe go the Twitch route. Not necessarily Twitch, but where you, instead of touring, you just do some specials where people can buy it online and watch it live, kind of like you see with idol groups in Japan where they do these streams of concerts and stuff like that. So then you don't even have the wear and tear and the money that's involved with getting a venue and all this other stuff. You just find a really cool place. Maybe you do it at a live house somewhere, so it does have that vibe to it, but you just put it out on the internet and people will buy that as well.
Yeah, and I think you see it a little bit. I think they did that with Ozzy's last show. Where, obviously they had it at a real live concert event, but you could also get limited time streaming if you bought a digital ticket or something to that effect. I think Megadeth did that for, I believe, might have been their Budokan show, the one where they had Marty come in for a couple songs. But yeah, it's something that I'm surprised you don't see more of.
Yeah, and wouldn't surprise me is as it becomes more expensive to tour and the margins are so much thinner. I'm waiting for the big act to be the first one to kind of stick their neck out and say, this is what we're going to do from here on out. We're from this town. We're going to go to this venue in this town. It could be small, and we're going to do just streaming concerts for 6 months and just see who buys it. And then you can do interesting things. You can have different guests come in on your bill. You can, have themed sets where you do certain albums in their entirety, or you rotate different, maybe no 2 sets the same for a week or something like that. Like there's some ideas there. And in this streaming culture we live in, where so much of the stuff that we consume is on Twitch or on YouTube, I'm wondering, because it almost feels like it needs to be a big act to take that chance to make it commercially viable for these small bands we talk about every week to be able to actually make money that way.
I think it would be something that Twitch should pursue just in general. Because I feel like they're in a place now where the idea of just watching people game isn't getting them where they need. Like what's really popular isn't really what is easy to promote, and maybe stuff that you don't really want your site being known for as much.
True.
So if you can pivot hard into live music, then man, go for it.
All right, Dan Clancy, if you're dropping by our channel to check us out sometime, there's your advice, free advice from Mike.
Yeah.
On how you should rebrand your streaming platform. Honestly, he's 100% right. I think any kind of events. I mean, we see it all the time, even in the sports world, all these streaming services buying up events and becoming the place to watch X or Y. The big WWE ESPN announcement last week is a good example. Like if Twitch can be the official site of certain bands, and that's where you're going to go to watch them, and you're going to, it's pay-per-view, or you'll be able to donate bits and stuff during the concert or whatever it may be. Like, I think that's a way to really drive new traffic to your website, because that's what we all want at all these streaming sites. You don't just want the people that go there and leave it on the second monitor every day. You want to find some new people that'll come in and engage with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's not a huge market there, but I want to believe there is.
Yeah, for sure. We hope there's a huge market of people on the site that wants to come listen to us talk about music every week. And we appreciate everybody who stops by, whether you're live or on the VOD or whatever it may be. We mentioned a couple weeks ago we're in the process of monetization. We can accept subscriptions now on our Twitch page. We won't get payouts until we meet the affiliate status, but we're moving in that direction. So we really appreciate everybody who's kind of helped us get this far, and excited to see kind of where we go from here. With that said, it is time to bring this episode to a close of the Hard Rock Empire, episode number 77. We'll be back again next Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, with another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. It'll be the music of July the 25th coming up next week, so make sure you join us for that. A big thanks to Mike for all his work on this podcast. Big thanks to Chris for passing along his answers to our power trio. And a big thanks to you whenever and wherever you are listening to our podcast. Finally, a big thanks to Stove Lake Media for their continued support of the podcast. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode of the Hard Rock Empire. Until then, don't forget to join the Empire, the Nerdcast Empire.